start, my name is Lance Bodden Gonzalez. I was born right over here. I was born in 1964, and I had the privilege of calling this my neighborhood. This why I raised up here till I was 13 years old. But being raised up in those days was so different. There was no fences. There was no cars. All the kids, everybody was respectful, and it was very nice. It's different than being raised up now. And uh, every kid had their own chores. You had to do something. You want to go bathe to sea. Your parents tell you, well, you got to clean the yard. You got to have your homework finished. Now the children are just going up and down, like, they don't worry about their homework. They don't worry about, what they got to do at home. You can't even get up to go do an errand. And before then, if an elderly or your parents spoke to you, you jump and you listen right away. If you speak to a teenager now, automatically you offended him, so he could start offending you also. But I was born and raised there in my childhood. I went to the public school 6 years. I graduated from 6 years there. Then I went on to Cyber, and I got graduated from bookkeeping Cyber. But growing up in Utila, like I tell people, it's so much difference now. The kids don't play. The kids get out, but when the kids get out now, ride motorcycles in the night. It was so much different before. The kids used to go on the beach, look for a coconut and pick a coconut, sit down on the beach and pelt rocks on the beach, or go swimming in the beach and come back home. And that was it at 6, 7 o'clock in the night, 8 o'clock in the night. Everybody was home. The kids was home. Their homework was done, and they were preparing to go to school tomorrow. The kids now, if they go at 8 and they don't get back at 10 or 12 in the night, no homework did. And, if they get up to go to school, they get up with a shirt that is dirty or tore on the next side. Back then, even when we was poor, but everybody went with the best they had, and the clothes was always nice and clean. Now to come now from childhood now to come to a teenager is a change. When you're a child, you're close by your house and that. When you become a teenager, you become more adventurous. You're going out, you went out and look for trials, you went on the iron shores. Back then it was only bush. So it was a challenge to go everywhere. But then as you start growing up as a teenager, then you start involved and start thinking about the histories. Who came here, how they came here. And that's what gave me this here, because a lot of people talks about who was the first person came here. How do they came here? And people sit down and you ask, like in school right now, you ask school children, what they used to do, you tell them. Everybody look in the sky. They don't know nothing about. And not only the local children is the ones that come from offshore, the one that comes here too. But, on the Bay Islands in general, we are so grateful for what the ancestors did us, but not only what they did, but what the history they leave for us. It's a rich history, and I tell people, as small as Utila is, Utila got more history than the big cities, because it's so much things. Every day on the island, you could go find out something new. There are places people never met. You find a shell that you never found nowhere else. You find a bottle that is nowhere else. You find something drift up on it on. Somebody come and tell you a story. And we so blessed to be in a community that which we still communicate with one another. We kind of know one another. And that what makes the islands, the 3 islands, so unique. But we started here, and plenty of these pictures is here, Utila, back in the 1800s, Like this guy here, where he is, Captain John Cooper here, used to live in Oak Ridge. Then some little conflict he got over there, and he ended up coming, and he came to the Keys. And so much other people's stories like this, plenty of people came from. I had one guy that was telling me his grandfather, he was in, when they had the Civil War in the States, he was in the Civil War, so he was down south. So when he went back north, his people didn't want nothing to do with him. So he came back south and got on a boat Louisiana and ended up here in Utila. Those are stories that we need to keep alive, because actually that's where our heritage come from. We wonder, well, why this one looked that way? Why this one is a big person? But all of us, now we kind of mixed. But back 100 years ago, 150 years ago, it was all pure, different people from, like, people come and say about Utila, where do people come to Utila? Yes, we had British people come here. But the British kind of diminished. Then the people from Caymans came in. And that's why we got so much mixing. And then we talks about culture, and people talks about culture. But I had this on my mind last night. But when you talk about culture in the Bay Islands, you talk about English speaking. And where we would get a lot of people say we sound like English people. And here in Utila, we had
two teachers. I mean, it's a strict teachers. And they're the only two teachers in Utila that dedicated themselves to the English speaking, and they did with the royal readers from England. So they was trying to keep up not only the English language, but they was trying to properly show us the English language. And so much things has come and changed, but living here and exploring Utila is so much fun. If you was a teenager in the Bee Islands, going to a beach that nobody went, climbing up into a coconut tree, picking coconuts, And, you tell a kid now to climb up to a coconut tree, he didn't even know what to look at a coconut tree. You tell him how you pick a coconut, he don't know, and things like that, and the fortune that we had was everything was in abundance. You were looking for a conch, there was plenty conchs. You were looking for chores, there was plenty of chores. Unfortunately now the Bee Islands has come overpopulated. It came with a little different cultures, and that's what we're trying to preserve and trying to see that further on in the next 50 years from now or 100 years from now, somebody will continue telling these stories of what the Bee Islands mean, where do they come from, who lived here, who was the guy that started the Bee Islands, who was the guy with ideas. And fortunately, we had a lot of people throughout the Bee Islands. They wasn't well educated, but you know what? They had a vision. They had a spirit, they had a notion, and they had a lot of common senses how to build, and how to survive on islands, basically, that it wasn't nothing but natural resources to get here. So everybody had to actually survive on the islands. So every family they planted, the next one made a dory, the next one made a pot to go fish. So everybody improvised for when they was living here. And that's a nice part of it, that every family had something they was good at, and they was proud of what they did. Today our families, we're not farming, nobody building nothing, everybody buy something. But when those guys build something, they build small boats, they build fishing, anything they built, they were so proud of what they built, and they built it with love, and that's the best part of that one,